The work means a lot more to the reader than it does the creator. And I've come to realize that in the last year. Like, people respond to something so strongly, and you'll see this a lot, where an author wants to distance themselves from the work, and meanwhile it's like somebody's salvation whenever they're 14 and, you know, breaking up with a girlfriend, or their parents are divorcing, or who knows what, you know. It means, it doesn't mean more to every reader, but you know what I mean? It's a totally different experience for everybody.
Well, the origin is kind of neat because I invited Jim and Brian to be in Project Superior, and he, I don't know if you recall Project Superior, but it was a neat design challenge because some signatures were red and black, red and black, blue and black, and then full color. And Jim was slated to be in like the red and black.
An Afrodisiac.
And so he gets the story done. He's like, listen, before I actually make this a two-color job and go through that process, I want to run it by you and see if you're okay with it. So it sends me the story in 4-color. And once I see it, I'm like, I have to run this in 4-color, you know. Which in my mind is a little bit more of a prestigious spot. So he worked his way in there. But then anyway, when that book came out, that same week, issue 5 of Street Angel came out. So if anybody, should we tell them this? Or
Yeah, go ahead.
No, just the trivia question is, what is Afrodisiac's first appearance? It's actually a tie. It's Project Superior and Street Angel number 5. Both came out on the same Wednesday.
And it was due to a shipping delay. One of the books ran into some kind of shipping problem.
But so after that, you know, he's been doing the Afrodisiac stuff in different anthologies, and just at conventions and stuff, we talk about it, and I don't know when we actually got serious about it.
There was no plan for the book when they were done, because they've been done over like a 5-year span, and the book's only been in the works for about a year. Some of the stuff was, like, at one point I was going to do an oversized story, and some of the artwork was for that. Some of the stuff was supposed to look like the romance covers, like 50s stuff, and that stuff was drawn like 2 up, so anytime I was trying to reference something that was maybe 1960 or older, I would try to draw it double-sized to kind of, you know, have as close to the authentic creation as possible for the stuff that I was referencing. The stuff from Street Angel 5 came first, production-wise, and that would be clear at the end, because it's him. Well, this was part of it. You know what? It's scattered. Did you haven't read Street Angel 5?
No, I got it.
So the way that works is she encounters Afrodisiac when he's like an old man. He's like 65, 70 years old, and they're fighting people. You know, they're kind of pinned down in this warehouse. And he starts telling her, you know, I used to be a superhero. And then whenever he's telling her about his background, it's flashed back to different panels, covers, and things throughout his life. So it covers the span from like issue 1, you know, that mock cover of issue 1, to the last story, which is, you know, long after the series had jumped the shark, and now it's like the early 80s, you know, with the explosion and the afros, the mushroom cloud at the end. All that stuff was the first stuff. I didn't start reading comics until I was 12. Like, I grew up in a very lowbrow, like the entertainment I was consuming was television, monster movies on Saturdays, you know, horror movies Saturday nights with some local cable host kind of thing. Where'd you grow up? Southwestern Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So then whenever I started like really working on the book, I was revisiting exploitation movie territory, you know, like from the 70s, probably late 60s to the early 80s. And then the other thing I grew up with were video stores, and there was all the straight-to-video kind of movies, low-budget things, which probably replaced the exploitation movies to some extent. So I think the book is more than blaxploitation, it's exploitation. You see the monster story, or, you know, almost the fetish treatment of cars. You know what I mean? It's definitely more than the blaxploitation stuff. It just so happens that for a protagonist, it's a blaxploitation inspired protagonist, you know, which is to say, kind of a rebel, anti-establishment, anti-the-man, you know, and these are more stereotypes of those films than any kind. I don't really think the book's about race. I don't have anything to say about race. You know, I would think most people by today's standards recognize racism as pretty, you know, stupid and unfounded, or they cling to some ancient, you know, some older belief that they have. In any case, it's not. I don't think it's going to affect anybody's opinion of race. all the stuff that I do, you know, like you find some way to connect to it so that it's meaningful. Like you're gonna sit over these pages for 10 hours at a time. There's no way you're gonna produce any level of quality if you don't connect to that work in some meaningful way. So I mean, like the old comics are what I loved. The stuff that I was reacting against would have been like Street Angel, which at the time was reacting against comics of that time period, you know? So like in 2003 or something, I started reading more and more comics from the 70s and 80s and things that connected to, I guess, feelings of nostalgia I had for comics. My co-creator and I we worked a day job together. He was a writer there, and I was a graphic designer. And so I was doing comics on my own, and I would take scripts in and be like, hey, give me some feedback on this, help me clean up the script. And we just happened to have similar taste, and so we started amusing each other with emails, and that developed into a comic script collaboration. So the collaboration works. It usually starts with some sort of brainstorming, whether it's in person, over the phone, through emails, where one of us has a really strong idea that we want to explore, and we just kind of bounce that back and forth as much as possible. And sometimes it's very formed relatively easily, and sometimes it's just like almost fist fight. Like everything we do together, I feel like 3 or 4 times, this is it. We're no longer working together. Our friendship's over. How are we going to settle up rights on some of these characters that we've done together? And then, you know, like a half an hour later, we're good and on our way again. But it's we're very critical, and I mean, I'm critical on my own, and so it's great to have a collaborator that's equally critical, that I can send something to that I'm not sure of, and if he gives it a thumbs up, like I trust his judgment more than I trust my own, you know. And vice versa. He sends me stuff that he likes, and I'm like, I just can't make that work. Whenever I was a kid, I hated humor. Like I was really into the 80s action movies like Predator or something, so like my idea of humor was Arnold Schwarzenegger throwing off, you know, saying stick around, like stabbing somebody. So I'm not sure when that changed, but I don't know. I'm a fairly angry person, and I feel like the humor is a way to vent that anger.
Are you really?
Oh, well, maybe not as much. I'm better than I used to be, but yeah, you know, I mean, I think that you look around the world and you have blinders on, or you're probably angry at some of the stuff you see.
It kind of takes me, because we've spent the whole afternoon with you, and you seem quite engaging.
Well, this is kind of good. I've been wanting to draw comics since I was 12. Here I am, people are reading stuff that I do. It's like, this is kind of great for me.
I'm not gonna let you bootleg.
No, I'm bootlegging.
No. Stop bootlegging. Adam's trying to steal your movie.